God loves you, but not enough to save you. What's good, gamers? Today, we're gonna be
unpacking
Ethel Cain lore. Now, in case the name Ethel Cain does not ring a bell for you, first of all, where the fuck have you been? Second of all, where the fuck have you been? Cause I personally think that with the amount of Ethel Cain lore and content in general that I've consumed, it's a very overwhelming amount. I am proud to say that I am an Ethel Cain connoisseur, so I will be breaking down Ethel Cain lore, and I feel like a lot of people will get this twisted, but Ethel Cain is not a real person. She is a concept, a character created by the real person, Hayden, Silas, Anadonia, and no, the events that occur are not anecdotal. Hopefully, at least, like, from my knowledge, not anecdotal, so no, these events are not nonfiction, they are a work of fiction. Thankfully, I'd like to preface this by saying that this is all from my point of view, what I've personally gathered from me consuming Ethel Cain content. I don't intend on making this video a very cohesive, coherent video essay. It's more just like a setting where it's like a little, hey, I've been like really like hyperfixated on this like one thing, and I've been like meaning to talk to you about it, kind of like thing, you know, like we'll be besties. Let's just be besties right now, okay? Like, what about yeah. I don't like intend on making this something you should like rely. Like, I'm not intending on like making this a very much professional video essay. This is very not professional, and I think I like it that way. I feel like I can get really raw with this and like what I genuinely think, and I just wanted to shit my thoughts out, you know? Yeah. But yeah, this is gonna be barely edited. I'm not gonna do anything too crazy, anything too YouTubey. I'll do that in my other videos, but right now I just want to get really personal, really deep about this, and I would like to touch on the content warnings of this video. I will be mentioning talks about suicide, child abuse, incest, sexual harassment, sexual abuse, cannibalism, just really serious shit. And if you feel like you can't stomach it, another pun, then I suggest that you click off this video, because I will be talking about these things really, really in depth. And let's first start this off by saying that Ethel Cain is an unreliable narrator. How I perceive her discography to be, it's basically just an anecdotal autobiography on her life, and whether that mean her upbringings from her childhood all the way to her death. So, I believe that the themes of Ethel Cain really revolve around generational trauma and how religious trauma can affect you with your development later on in your life. And I think that having a not so present father figure, not so present in the sense that he was loving and obviously something a father figure should be, which definitely was not Ethel Cain's father figure. Let's just say that Ethel Cain's father was a fucking jerk, right? He was a fucking douche, and how that has affected her outlook on pursuing romantic relations with other men. So basically this will be a therapy session. This will be a psychoanalysis of how religious trauma and generational trauma can impact someone's outlooks on love for the worse. I was gonna say for the better or for the worse, but it is definitely for the worse, because she dies, and I mean, like, okay, everybody dies, but she dies in a very horrid, tragic way, which I will be touching on once again. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, cannibalism, okay? You get my jig, okay? So she has not had a very stable childhood, per se, and that goes to say that this was mainly caused by her relationship with her father, which I will be talking about probably, like, mostly, judging by the flow of this video. I'm raw dogging this. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm genuinely just, like, brain farting right now, and I hope you don't mind that. But she was abused by her father for, just to put it bluntly, she was abused by her father, and this is evident in the song Hard Times, and it is explicitly stated that this trend of her father abusing her carries on later into her life, where she attaches this sentiment of her father, how her father treats her, she attaches that to her outlook on the men she interacts with, and that's shown by, that's, like, depicted in the lyrics I'm Tired of You, still tied to me, because she can't seem to detach herself from the sentiment of her father, because he had been abusing her from a really young age, like 9. I think she was 9. I think that's, if I'm not wrong. And she's never really had a good example in her life, a good masculine figure in her life to eradicate that sentiment. And so she has had to live with this dysfunctional outlook on how she perceives men, and she is almost willingly getting herself into these situations where she should not be with these kinds of men, but she does so anyway because she finds solace in these kinds of men, because they remind her of her father, which was the only type of fatherly love she had ever known. She does not know what it's like to be truly loved by a man, and when she did, she was loved by a man with the name of Willoughby. He was murdered. I should not laugh. He was murdered, and so obviously her perspective on love is very dysfunctional, and you can only do so much but to feel bad for her. And yeah, hold on. With the aforementioned concept of finding solace in men that remind you of your father, I think that ties in very well with Stockholm Syndrome, and I believe that her relationship with a very certain type of man is very, very much Stockholm Syndrome-esque, and I believe that this is all genuinely because she does not know what a good example of love should be, what she does deserve, as all she had known in life was that she was useless, per se. And I feel like you can see that in the song. Let me bring up the song real quick. Hold on. Ethel Cain. On her Golden Age EP, on the song Head in the Wall. Very, very heavy song. It talks about heavy, and not in the sense of like, oh yeah, let's fucking rock on, but like heavy in the sense that it's very difficult to process these things, because it's very much a lot of things happening in one song. Very heavy topics, obviously, with mentions of self-harm, literal explicit mentions of self-harm. And I believe that although this EP is a separate compilation to Preacher's Daughter, because this is on her Golden Age EP, I believe that it ties in holistically with Preacher's Daughter, because as I've mentioned, Ethel Cain is an autobiography of her life, not Hayden's life. Ethel Cain herself's life. It's just a telling of her life through her perspective. It's very much self-deprecating. Like I said, she is an unreliable narrator, right? And we get to see what happens to her through her songs, and we get to experience her life through her songs. So essentially, we are Ethel Cain. Okay, non-dualism. We are one and the same. You are me, I am you. That makes a lot more sense with the whole like cannibalism theme, but I will elaborate upon that further. I hope this isn't too all over the place. I'm really just trying to like spit out words, hoping that it like creates like a visual mind map or something for myself. But this is genuinely just, I hope it's like what I'm explaining isn't redundant. I hope that I'm hitting the point per se. But like I said, all of her EPs have a holistic theme surrounding them, being her life, what she's experienced. And I believe that you can connect songs from her Preacher's Daughter album to something like the Golden Age EP, or even the Inbred EP, because they all tie to this one theme of not having a stable sense of self, understandably so, due to what she's experienced in life. Therefore, she has to attach her identity to something external, whether that be what she does with her life, the experiences she goes through, or whether that be the men she interacts with. She attaches a great deal of her identity, herself, to those men because they remind her of her father, whether that be consciously or subconsciously. I believe that it's just a natural thing. Obviously, let's not get too Freudian here, okay? Like, fucking Oedipus complex. Okay, this is not an example of the Oedipus complex. It's just an example of generational trauma. And I believe that Hayden has done a very good job into formulating such heavy topics into lyrics, just works of art that you can consume, whether that be for leisure, like you're just listening to her music casually, just like, okay, like I like the melodies, the cute little consonants is, very, or maybe the dissonance of Ptolemy, if you fuck with that. Honestly, I can't really listen to Ptolemy too much because I feel like it's very triggering, and I will elaborate further upon that soon, but I hope you see where I'm like going with this. But what am I talking about? You probably don't, because like you're coming to this video for like a reason. You want me to explain things to you, but I'm like explaining things to you with the knowledge that you already know about Ethel Cain lore, even though you probably don't, and that's why you've come to this video. So I apologize. I'm just talking, man. I'm really, honestly, a girl can talk. And that's another thing. I feel like when people ask me, I'm saying this as if like anyone's ever asked me to like mansplain Ethel Cain lore to them. No, I'm schizophrenic. No one's ever done that. But if someone were to ask me to summarize Ethel Cain lore, I would simply say that she was just a woman. She's just a girl. All she wanted to do was love and be loved, and these are the repercussions she gets for wanting something so simple like love, because love isn't something so simple. It isn't something simple in her life, and that's why it's so tragic. Love has always been such a foreign concept to Ethel Cain that she goes to lengths to even conceptualize what love could be to her. But because she's never had a figure of love for her to even grasp, she doesn't know what love is. She goes in with this fucking stranger that asks her, "Do you want to explore the West with me?" And obviously any sane person would not take them up on that offer. But because Ethel Cain is such a tragic character, per se, she goes along with it in hopes that she'll be able to experience what love could be to her. And I guess in that sense it's very limerent. It is very limerent. Her idea of love is limerent. Because she doesn't know what it... Once again, hammering this point home, she doesn't know what love is. And I think that's just so tragic. And that's why I will not shut up about this. Because it's so fucking tragic. It's a fucking dystopia. Because first of all, to have your father figure be the scum of the earth and have that be the only thing you can like source back what love could be to you, because like, believe it or not, we do that. Like, as humans, we subconsciously like resort back to childhood patterns. That's the whole fucking like, that's where the whole like inner child thing comes from. No, it's not just some fucking like fiasco thing on like social media people are talking about, like this, oh, I was inner child this, inner child that. No, it's like an actual fucking thing, right? But why am I getting so heated over this? I don't know why, but like, like I said, does not have anything else to reference what love should be to her, or what she does deserve. Like, even when she's already dead, because let's actually talk about the lore now. So she meets this guy called Isaiah, and this is seen in the song Thoroughfare, and I'd say it's very much country gaze. It's very much reminiscent of a Texan scene, because it does take place in Texas. She meets this guy called Isaiah, and he's like, "Why don't you explore the West with me?" Obviously, she says yes. And that's where I went on that whole tangent of like, why the fuck would you do that? Like that, right? But so she goes on this hedonistic trip with Isaiah, and she for once feels as though she would not mind life like this. She is for once not reminded of the sorrows that her experiences have brought her, and for once you actually feel kind of happy for this girl. Until you don't, because she gets sold as a prostitute in the next song. In Gibson Girl. Yeah. So, in Gibson Girl, she gets drugged, and she's working as a prostitute because Isaiah has taken her to California, I presume, to work as a prostitute, because obviously he can profit off that. And so he had taken advantage of someone so weak, someone so fragile like Ethel, and used her to his advantage. And he is the ultimate villain, the ultimate antagonist of the Ethel Cain story. When you think of all the bad things that happened to Ethel Cain, you source it back to primarily her father and Isaiah. And you can see that they mirror each other, because all she does is attract bad men in her life. And you wonder why. You really wonder why. Why are you always mingling around these bad men? And then you remember, whoa, she does not actually know what love is. Because first of all, her only prime example of what true love could have been got murdered. Got murdered. Okay. And so she has no choice but to find solace in consoling other men that remind her of her father, because abuse is all she's ever known in life, and that's very tragic, I think. Very, very, very tragic. And so she says, I think there's a very distinct lyric that stands out to me in Gibson Girl, where, let me pull up the actual lyric so I don't butcher this. In Gibson Girl, where she says, asking me to know how I know you're all the same. I think that implies two things. It implies that she had been very heavily drugged by Isaiah, which is what had happened, and so all of the men that are like coming to her start to look the same. But then you could also take this in a more semantic way, where you quite literally associate with men that remind you of your father, because that's all you've known in life. And I think that it's very much artistic how you can interpret these lyrics in very many different ways, and they all, at the end of the day, tie down to a very holistic theme. And I think that's why it tickles my brain so much. And then she continues to say, says he's in love with my body, that's why he's fucking it up. And then he says to me, baby, if it feels good, then it can't be bad. let's reference this back to hard times, where she says, sorry, I think I might like cut this part out because I don't know what I was like fucking like going on about, but basically says he's in love with my body, that's why he's fucking it up. Obviously that's very much manipulative. I guess there have been instances of loving something so much that you wish to destroy it in a self-sabotage kind of sense, but I believe that this isn't an example of that. I believe that this is an example of narcissism. Isaiah using Ethel to his own advantage because she is weak and fragile, and obviously that's what he preys on. I believe that he had already known that, you know what, this girl she is the perfect victim for me to profit off of and for me to get away with scot-free, you know? Because what can she do? And that's so tragic. That's so tragic. Like, I feel like all you want to do is, like you just, I feel like when you listen to this, you're just asking yourself, like, why does this happen? But then you know why it happens. You know why. Because this is all she's ever known in life. And all you want to do is just, like, tell her, you know, like, this isn't really what you deserve. You deserve, like, so much more. And that's why it is so dystopian. Because you know what she deserves, but she doesn't. And that's why it is so scary. You want to fuck me right now. You want to see me on my knees. You want to rip these clothes off and hurt me. A very erotic description of sexual tendencies, obviously, like being like, oh, you want to fuck me right now. You want to see me on my knees. You want to rip these clothes off and hurt me. I feel like that can almost be taken in a romanticized view. And I think that that is definitely what Ethel is resorting to in this situation, where you are literally being sold as a prostitute, and I guess props to her for looking at the light at the end of the tunnel with this, still having hope with all this, where she is sort of at least seeing this as a way for her to empower herself. Because I feel like female liberation, female sexual liberation nowadays is very much like, oh wow, you need me to fuck you right now. Like, you want me to fuck you right now. And stuff. But then she ends it with saying, and hurt me. Now, BDSM. Oh god, oh, we're really getting into it today, but saying these words can almost be seen as, once again, affirmations of female sexual liberation. But at the end of the day, she is being sold off, being profited off of, and she gains nothing from this. But there is still that little hope in her that's still latching on to something greater. Maybe this can be what I've really longed for in life. Maybe this man can give it to me. Even in this deluded, drugged state of hers, she is still resorting to hope. And I feel like that's something we can learn from her. Yep. And then we proceed to Ptolemaea, which I think is Ethel Cain's most explicitly disturbing song. I believe that Hard Times and Strangers are both they're my favorite songs by her, and for the reasons that they are very much disturbing in a way that you would have to actually decipher the lyrics first to understand what's going on, and you're like, holy fuck, that's that. Wow. You need to do it a double take. A metaphorical double take, I'd say. And just realize the absolute gravity of the situation she's got herself into. Because she's getting murdered in this song. She is getting murdered. She's trying to run away from Isaiah, and it starts off with him in a very demonic voice, being very love-bomby, manipulative, love you, love you, love you, love you, love you, love you. And you do well to say yes to me. So he knew what he was doing this whole time. This was his plan from the get-go, to make use of her and to get away with it scot-free. Scum of the earth. Which is an exact mirror of her dad. Once again, let's just keep relating this back to the childhood trauma aspect of Ethel Cain. Now this is where we dive into the generational trauma aspect of Ethel Cain, because you know the saying where your life flashes before your eyes before you die? I believe that is what is happening here in Ptolemaea, where she's getting murdered, and we get to see an insight into her family, where the lyrics say, "Blessed be the daughters of Cain, bound to suffering eternal through the sins of their harvest moon, bound to suffering eternal through the sins of their fathers committed long before their conception. Blessed be their whore mothers, tired and angry, waiting with bated breath in a ferry that will never move again. Blessed be the children, each and every one come to know their God through some senseless act of violence. Blessed be you, girl, promised to me by a man who can only feel hatred and contempt towards you." Dude, this is getting me emotional. I can't fucking lie to you. This is actually getting me emotional. Because even in the moments of her death, she resorts to religion, which is all she's known in life and what she's been raised with. Let's reference this back to the saying, God loves you, but not enough to save you, because it seems as though this is a cry for help. If Jesus is out there, please save me. Obviously, I'm literally getting fucking murdered. And it's almost ironic. Just how flippant it is how ignorant, how lazy, how easy it is to resort to telling someone God loves you when they are at the very moments of despair. They're at their very, like, this is, like, she's dying, right? She's fucking dying. And to resort to God because there is nothing else that can save her anymore, and even so, God will not save her, is very, very tragic. It is very, very, very tragic, I believe. And let's talk about the aforementioned generational trauma with bound to suffering eternal through the sins of their fathers committed long before their conception. So this is an example of generational trauma because this is a trend that had occurred before Ethel Cain was born, shown through her mother, where there's so much pent-up female rage within her mother that she cannot act out. And in a way, it sort of transfers onto Ethel. And this is all she's come to know in life. It's just, her outlook on love is genuinely just a product of her family. What she's known in her family. And I think that's very empirical. It's very much what does occur in day-to-day life. What does occur in reality. And you would require a lot of self-introspection and a lot of and you would have to come to that realization yourself to know that I am so much more deserving than this life, and I know that I will be the one to stop the cycle of generational trauma, except she had never had that figure in her life to teach her that. And I think that Ethel Cain is an example of what happens to someone, what would happen to someone that had gone through so much suffering in life and so much agony to the point where it distorts their outlook on love because pain is the only thing they know. It's the only thing they can source back to. It's the only thing they find solace in. Happiness is something foreign to them. And what happens when they aren't met with what they actually deserve in life? And it's very, very tragic, and I think this is very, very dystopian. This is probably scarier than, like, a lot of horror that I watch, and I watch a lot of horror. And it's very scary because it's something that happens in everyday life. It's not so far removed from reality because it's still very much deeply rooted in what could happen, potentially. And it's sad. It's sad to think about that, I'd say. Yeah. Now, let's get into the heavy. Yep. I feel as though I failed to mention that God loves you, but not enough to save you is a lyric from Sun Bleached Flies. And I believe that sun-bleached flies is in itself an idiosyncratic metaphor for Ethel herself, because a fly will keep bumping into things, for lack of a better way to put it, will keep bumping into things in order to get past the window, right? It doesn't know that a window is like in front of it, like blocking its path, but it will keep bumping against that window, and I believe that that is very reminiscent of Ethel's character. She will keep being met with obstacles that come in her way, but she will always be like, you know what, maybe there's a way out for this. Maybe I will be able to experience what I've truly longed for in life, and that's love. But what is love? She doesn't even know that herself. Very, very tragic. Very, very tragic shit. And yeah, it's just very much how in her times of death, which I believe sun-bleached flies is a telling of her perspective after she's died. Sort of this like light, you know, the sun and everything being reminiscent of that last light before you don't fucking die. Very existential, I guess. Now, I've been kind of dreading to talk about this point of Ethel's lore. This is, I think, I might cry, I might get emotional. I will preface this because it is very, very profound and very, very much triggering. I would like to just make sure that's clear, as if I have not already spoken about everything under the sun that could have potentially triggered anybody. But this, if nothing in this video has triggered you yet, then this potentially could. Because it has triggered me. And a lot of other people. Because it's just so... It's not so the content that's triggering, but it's really the realization of how tragic it all is. Even if this is a work of fiction, you realize how, once again, not so far removed from reality this is. This could very much be happening to anyone. It's not so fictional in the sense that it's like, oh, this ghost and everything, like the devil. When the devil resides in the people you interact with on a daily basis, it's very much just existential dread. And I think it also doesn't help that it's like 3 a.m. right now, and I'm like tweaking when I say this, because I'm sleep deprived, but it's okay. We move. We gotta do it for the content. Yeah. I hope I haven't scared you off by now. And if I have, then that's probably for your own good, but, yeah. Strangers by Ethel Cain. I can recite the song with my eyes closed while I'm, like, hanging off the ledge of a cliff. I will be able to recite this entire song. because it is just, if I can sum this song up, put a theme to this, it's just, why? You know, like, it's just despair, really. It's just fucking agony. And it's just, like, I feel like I sound very histrionic when I'm, like, talking about this, but this is genuinely, it's just how intricately realistic these things could be. And that's so scary. That's so scary. Like, the human experience is fucking insane, okay? You don't know who to trust, is what I'm saying. Because what if the people you interact with on a daily basis are a reflection of the figures you've had in your childhood that aren't very loving or anything? And what if you haven't self-introspected enough to realize that, and then you realize, holy shit, I am the reason for all of my problems, but at the same time I'm not, because it's like okay, let's get into this. She gets cannibalized. She gets fucking eaten. Okay, she gets eaten. In your basement, I grow cold. Ugh. In your basement, I grow cold. Thinking back to when I was told, when I was always told, don't talk to strangers or you might fall in love. In your basement, I grow cold. That is a literal, explicit depiction of her lifeless corpse. Lying on Isaiah's basement. Getting cold. Okay? Freezer bright, you're sweet divine. You devour like smoke. Oh, I'd hide. How funny, I never considered myself tough. So obviously this is a depiction of her meat getting tougher because she's being refrigerated. She's getting refrigerated because she's gonna get cooked. And then this bitch has the fucking audacity to be like, you're so handsome, walking over to me now. Because even when she's about to get eaten, she considers this man something she's an object of affection for her. But, like, can you really blame her? Can you really fucking blame her when this is all she's fucking known in life? And then you're like, oh my god, this... yeah. 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 Mm-hmm. And then she goes on the self-deprecating chorus. I tried to be good, am I no good, am I no good, am I no good? With my memory restricted to a Polaroid and evidence because he's going to eat her. And so there's going to be no evidence left of her because he's eaten her. He's not throwing her body off in the lake or anything. He's not incinerating her or whatever the fuck other methods you do to, like, kill to, like, dispose of, like, a lifeless corpse. He eats her. And I think now it's all making sense to you why I've made all those stomach jokes, all those eating jokes, all those fucking devouring jokes, all those consuming jokes, because of this. This is the pinnacle of Ethel Cain lore. She gets eaten by a man, and he does that because he does not want any of her remains to get him in trouble because he is the scum of the earth. Yeah. I am very much staying up to make this video, but I enjoy it. I enjoy going insane. I enjoy driving myself to the depths of insanity because that's just the human experience. If no one's gonna do it for you, you gotta do it to yourself. You gotta drive yourself to the brink of insanity. Welcome to Psychosis 101. But basically, the reason why Strangers sticks out to me so much is because of how desperate she still is to feel loved, even in this state where she is no longer on this earth. Because love is omnipotent, you could say that love is everything. Love is all-encompassing. Love is you. Love is me. Love is everybody. But if you don't know what love is, then you don't know anything in this world. Does this make sense? Is this making sense? Am I making you feel sick? Let's talk about that lyric, okay? Let's talk about am I making you feel sick? The infamous am I making you feel sick? She's being digested in his stomach. And I assume he's eaten every single bit of her, which would include her brain, which could give him the Crow disease, which would drive him to insanity before death. So maybe in that sense she would dispose of her traumas and of her emotional baggage onto him in a very grotesque way, in a very grotesque manner, where he would literally have to contract a disease in order to conceptualize the amount of pain he had inflicted on her. But yeah, even in the depths of her despair, where she is being consumed by this man, where she presumably her soul does not reside in this body anymore, but she is foretelling this through the perspective of an outsider now, where she is looking out on this, where she's no longer in her body anymore, right? It's an out-of-body experience or whatever, because she's fucking dead. She's getting eaten right now. Where she is still worried of his sanity, his well-being. Is she making him feel sick? Is she still good for him? Is she still doing good to him? Do you know how tragic that is? To still be seeking validation, even in the moments where you're literally being eaten. You're literally being eaten. The last thing you can worry about is whether or not you're going to kill this man or not, right? Because he killed you. He's eating you. He is literally eating you to dispose of the evidence that he's killed you. This is a man with malicious intent. He is quite literally the physical representation, the amalgamation of Satan himself. And you're still going to worry about whether or not you are inflicting pain, on him, because that's all you've known in life. Pain, suffering, agony. Yeah, okay. Now this here might be a little bit of a stretch, but dare I say that the lyrics, we make love in your attic all night, detail necrophilia? Would it be wrong for me to propose that idea? Because euphoric and some strange delight, you are attributing this hedonistic fantasy of making love to a lifeless corpse that you have probably half eaten. Do you know how fucking sick that is? For you to not only kill someone and then eat them, but to also have sex with their lifeless body? I don't know. This is how I'm interpreting the lyrics. I'm interpreting this as Isaiah eating bits of Ethel's body, and then him continuing to have coitus. To have coitus. I'm like trying not to say that. To have sex with her lifeless corpse. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. The ending of the song is obviously detailing that she's made it real far, which means that she's obviously made it to fucking purgatory. I don't believe she's made it to heaven. I don't know if she has, because and the fact that she's still succumbing to this notion of it's okay that you've hurt me. I think Ethel Cain is truly a lesson that you need to have some idea of self-worth if you want to get into relationships, or else you will be taken advantage of and perchance possibly eaten and necrophiliated. Yeah, I think this concludes my very, very, very long, unnecessarily long psychoanalysis of Ethel Cain's story, Ethel Cain's lore, per se. And I hope that I was not too redundant. I imagine that I was probably redundant in some parts of the video, because I really just wanted to hammer the point home that this is fucking crazy, guys. This is crazy. And this is what's been eating away at my brain, and I just feel really glad that I've been able to talk about this and be crazy about this, yeah. Let me know if you have any more additional thoughts, and if you've enjoyed this video. I will be doing more videos like this, obviously, because this is not the last time I will be gracing my presence on the YouTube algorithm, and I know that you wouldn't want this to be the last you'd ever see of me, obviously, because duh, I'm so amazing. /HJ. But let's not get too pompous now. I'm sleep deprived. I want to go to sleep now. And I'll be making more of these chatty videos about everything existential, everything absurd, because that's just very girly and very awesome. Okay. I'll smell you later.